Hi, everybody. How are you
Hi.
doing? I'm Dr. Gail, and here's Nancy Jean from Nancy Jean's Garden. Thanks for joining us today on Skywalking with Moon, and we're simulcasting on her channel also, Nancy Jean's Garden. So today we are going to be talking about our nature spirits today, the elementals. The elementals are associated with the four elements, the fire, air, water, and earth, and we're going to be talking about that today. Nancy Jean has vast knowledge on the elementals and been studying them for years. And so I'm going to give it to you, Nancy Jean. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There's also, if you go into Asian mythology, they have the element of wood in
Okay.
feng shui.
And they also have metal too, don't they?
It can be metal or wood, but they have five, not four. And that's real confusing. So I'm staying with the Western
Yeah.
structure because the other one messes me up. But just every time I do this, people go, but you forgot about the wood. And the wood's real important because it's
I've heard that same thing too. But let me speak to who's coming in right now. Hey, Leah, thanks for joining us today. And looks like Nancy Jean, you got a bunch, you got a bunch of questions there. Hey, Sarah, thanks for joining us. And GP3322, thanks for being here. And Catherine, hey, Catherine, I believe Nancy Jean has a question from you.
yep.
Hey, Lisa Dailies, thanks for being here. And hey, Mimi, thanks for joining us today. And yet another Linda. I still love that name. Yet another Linda. Thanks for being here. So go ahead, Nancy Jean. I'll be saying hello occasionally to some people coming in, and then you can go ahead and start, and then we'll go into questions after that.
Yeah. Well, there's when I first met the elementals, the way I happened, I had not, well, I hadn't formally made a study of the elementals before COVID. I knew I had fairy decks and I knew about different things, but I hadn't really studied them that way. But when I was growing up, I had a book next to my bed, and it was a big, thick book, like this kind of thick book. And it was called The Encyclopedia of Myths and Knowledge for around the world. And it handled all the critters and tales and stories for the whole world. And so I'd roll over, and sometimes I'd be reading in Sweden, and sometimes I'd be reading in Africa, and sometimes I'd be reading in South America. There's sort of a continuing saga through the whole world about the elementals. But I was like, that's lovely. I never paid that much attention to it. And then one night I was just sleeping happily in my bed, and I woke up and this face was looking at me. I don't, I can't get him.
So what did you need?
Cecil.
I'm assuming.
No, next to him, next to Cecil.
Oh gosh, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, just these are only two I'll use. Use the next one.
I'm looking at this a little square.
Okay, then don't worry about it. Take it out.
I don't. I don't know. Let's see. Nope.
That's the Alush. And then
Okay.
Cecil's a square.
I don't see Cecil.
He's right next to the Cancun Bridge and before Jada and the little guy. Anyway, there was this lovely dragon looking down at me, and he said, "You're coming with me." I like this face. We're our stars wrapped in skin. The light you are seeking comes from within.
I
That's
don't.
what I kind of learn.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, found. Oh, that's Cecil. Okay, he was looking at me and he said, "You're coming." And dragons are very soft. He wasn't scaly or any of that stuff like you get from Game of Thrones. He's very soft, and I got up on his back because in the middle of the night I do strange things, and I rode with him. And he said we rode around, and he swooped over cities so I could like see the Eiffel Tower. I could see Big Ben. And I said, this is fascinating. I get to fly around the world on a dragon. And the next thing I knew, he said, hold on. And I looked down, and it was in the North Atlantic Ocean, and there was like a black spot on the North Atlantic Ocean. And we dived into that spot, and it was like a water spout. It's actually a portal. There's also a portal in there, Dr. Gail, if you go far enough. No, there's not. I didn't put the portal in. There was a portal, and I went through the portal, and when we stopped, he said, you can get off now. And I was in this gorgeous Tolkien-esque glen place, but there was trees beyond. And he said, they're coming for you. And what came out of the forest was all of the mythologic, historic sort of figures you'd expect. I saw unicorns. There were very tall things called sis, which are the fairies in Ireland are very tall. The tiny little fairies that look like Tinkerbell, they were a Victorian invention. Before then, everybody accepted they were tall. And they said, come in. And they were having a party. And I danced at the party. And I said, why'd you bring me here? And they said, because you need to go and tell people about us, because with the earth, you understand that the energy is changing and that things are going to be changing and the frequencies are changing and people will be able to see us more. Not that there weren't people already seeing them, but they'll be able to see us more. And so finally, at the end of the party, they put me back on Cecil. And when I woke up, I was at home and I went, I don't even smoke grass. I mean, how do I have dreams like this, So I happened to tell a friend of mine whose name happens to be Gail about this dragon and going through a hole in the ocean and how they want, and I was saying to her at the time, they want me to get on YouTube and talk about this. Like, I'm not that crazy. And Dr. Gail said, what did your dragon look like? And I said, well, I said, it looked like a dragon, but had really kind eyes. And then she asked me about the portal. And it ended up, how many days before I talked to you about that had your friend sent you those pictures?
Probably just about 5 days or 3 days. It wasn't very long.
Anyway, that's where the picture of Cecil comes from. That's Dr. Gail's friend seeing Cecil before I even met him.
Have you never met her?
And I've never met her. I mean, I've never met Dr. Gail physically in person. And she also drew the portal. So I went, oh, well, that's interesting. And they kept coming around me. I could hear them in my ear saying, when are you going to talk about us? When are you going to tell people where we are? We told you what's going on with us. And so I got in my car to go run an errand to a craft store, which is the only place, one of the few places I ever go. And I get in the car and there's it looks like solid gold dragonfly in front of my windscreen. And I looked at it and I went, that's weird. So then I backed up and it backed up. And then it got on the side, on the driver's side window, and it put its wings against the window and it was metallic. It was hard. I said, oh, you're from them. And then it got right in front of my car, like dragonflies do, and hovered. And as I moved, it moved. And finally I said, you're not going away until I do this, are you? And they said, no. So that's the first time I came out, like 3 days later, did a show on elementals with Dr. Gail's drawing, because by that time she'd become part of this. But when I went back and saw them again, when they hijacked me again, they said, you're not explaining who we are. And this is where I get into trouble with some people, not naming names. But they want people to understand the elementals have been here for a long time. As long as human and as long as anything that resembled human life was here. And what they were getting upset about was nobody was talking about the elementals. People were talking about angels and aliens and other things. And they were mistaking the elementals for one of those other critters. And my argument with them at the time is the same one I still have. You're all energy, kind of why does it matter what we call you? But to them, for some reason, the ones I met, it kind of mattered. And so they wanted me to come out and say that they're not angels. They're more pissed about being called angels than anything else, because they said that's a completely different energetic realm. And they live in a part in the center of the earth. And I said, why did you go to the center of the earth? Well, then they introduced me to a book by a person named T.W. Rawlinson, and it's Rollleson, and it's still available, and it's called Celtic Myths and Legends. And he wrote this book in the late 19 teens. This book is more than 100 years old. And what he did, he was a scholar, and at the time, that's when all people were going around and collecting all the folk legends, not just in England, but in Europe and in other countries. They were all doing it at the same time, trying to get the legends and the myths that people had grown up with together. And so he did. And he interviewed people who could remember seeing the elves and fairies dance in the fields in England and could remember seeing them walk around, and said, yes, dragons were real things. Dragons came in and played a role in people's lives. And I said, well, why'd they go away? I mean, it seems to me you're a lot hardier than we are. And they said that their demise starts, and if you read his book, you'll understand this, in the Industrial Revolution, when people were taken off the land. In the time, Dr. Gail, your family immigrated to the U.S. because they took away what your generations, thousands of years had done in Scotland. And Dr. Gail has a fairy story in her family tree. And they said it was putting up with human rejection was so hard that they were offered an opportunity to go hide under the earth, and that they will come back when the vibrations are right. And they said, the change is coming, the energies are changing. You have to learn to see us. And so I started talking about him, read a lot of books about him, read lots of old books about him. There's lots of contemporary books, and I kind of read them and want to roll my eyes. They're not. And there's a lot of legends about them in all cultures and all types of people. And they all say they've been here forever and that they do come. That's why that one slide you put up, I think, is particularly meaningful, Dr. Gail, because it says we are all the light of stars just wrapped up. And when we look outside of the wrapper we're in, nope, that's stop being afraid of being wrong. I'm getting excited about it. It's the next one. It's wrapped in stars. You can see how well rehearsed Doctor and I. Okay, we are all stars wrapped in skin.
When it's this big,
I know. We are all stars wrapped in skin, and the light you are seeking always has been within. And what we're trying to do is open up our skins and connect to the stars. And they all say they came from beings beyond Earth at the very, very beginnings, but it's just more a matter of they've hung out in that cave for so long. And I understand aliens have too, but they've hung out in the cave for so long, they don't want to be called aliens. They want to be acknowledged as elementals. And they do have purview over certain parts of the earth. One of the things about elementals you get really quickly is that their temperament, I don't know, when I speak to my brushes with aliens that I remember or acknowledge are not high top of my mind. But the Fae folk and the spiritual people want us to understand that because they've been attached to the earth so long, they have the duality of earth, and they have the wanting to get along and wanting to be helpful. But if you piss them off, they'll come for you. And so there are some really evil, mean stories. And mostly they're about times when mankind turned on them. And the one I think is kind of typical. At one point, one of the kings of England decided to drain the swamps, what they used to call the fens in England, in the marsh on the eastern side. And they were draining the fens. And there was a Fae folk that lived up there. And the Fae folk used to help the farmers grow crops there, live there, have a meaningful life there. But when the king drained the fens, the elementals got offended, and they came after him. And it's a pretty bloody fairy tale, if you think it's a fairy tale, about what they did to people. They would draw them they drowned their children. They did all kinds of stuff because they said.
Can I interrupt there, Nancy Jean? Because some people need to know what the elementals are and what they represent and what are in each category.
Okay.
Well, I can start with that.
Okay.
Fire is usually the salamanders. Earth is the pixies, the brownies, and water is the mermaids, the undines. Air are the fairies and the sieves. And then you have you've got your dragons, which can encompass all the elements. Your unicorns are usually like Christ consciousness. They have the highest vibration. And then you have the phoenix, that's the fire. So
that's right. That's transformational.
Cover covering the elementals, the basic of the elementals.
Yeah. Earth elements are, think about them in the pictures we've drawn them, and what people draw when they draw those pictures that we grew up with in the fairy stories. And quite honestly, when they come to me, they put that guys on so that I understand who they are. But earth elements are gnomes, dwarves, dryads, other beings that stay around trees.
Right.
And
Trees and trees,
minerals.
plants and rocks and minerals and
Right.
everything.
And air is sylph, fairies, the wind, cloud spirits, and winged guardians of the sky.
And they take care of the pets or animals, actually.
Mm-hmm. And then fire elements are salamanders, dragons, phoenixes, fiery beings for transformation and courage. And, you're not going to hug a piece of fire and bring it home with you.
They are the ones that brought fire to us.
Mm-hmm. And water elements are undines, merfolk, naiads that can float, fluid spirits. And I like one image of a naiads is that you can see them when you look out at you live by the ocean, so you can see this at night. You can look out and you can see when the moonbeams are being reflected on the waves. That's the naiads.
And the water beings also take care of the water, the
whales,
fish,
dolphins,
everything in the water. So that they're kind of the guardians of that.
And there are ways to create crystal grids, and I'm thinking about doing a show on creating crystal grids for each of the directions of the elementals, because earth is east, air is north, fire is south, and west is water. And directionally, and to work with elementals, if you want, I saw there's some questions about how do I connect with them, where can I find out more about them. Go out and take your dowsing rods, if you have them, take your pendulum and stand in each direction and see which group might be most conducive for you to work with right now. You're going to end up working with all of them. There's not a way to work with one of them where you're not going to run into the other one. But that's going to work for that. And the other thing is we tend to see the elementals in the cultural frames that we've had, either that we know we have because our family told us fairy stories on their laps, or we know because we've lived through the times when humans interacted with elementals. Another one of my favorite elementals stories is about dragons. And dragons in the Eastern culture bring knowledge and try to work and help with people, or they're considered very benevolent. The further you get into Western culture, the meaner the dragons get. And again, they get mean. And then we're forever sending sainted kings off to go to kill them with their swords, which isn't a good idea. But my favorite dragon story actually comes from Norway. And there was a young couple that did what young couples do, and then what normally happens happened. So she got pregnant, and the families were disgraced, and so they threw the young man out of the tribe, out of the group, and then their law said they should pin the young woman onto these rocks at the edge of the shore, and then the sea would come and eat her slowly. And so they were pinning her up. Of course, the whole village has to show up to see what happens, right? So they're all standing around the edge watching. And all of a sudden, out of the water comes this giant dragon. And the people go, oh my God, must be coming to eat her because she did bad things. And the dragon spoke to them, and he telepathically spoke with them. And he said, who are the leaders of your community? Can they step forward? Where is her father? Where are the people who run this community? And so he said, take her off these rocks. I want to talk to them. And when they brought them down to the shore, they thought he was going to say, congratulations, you're doing a great job. He didn't. He reached down and he ate them and let the girl go and brought her lover in and said, you two go find your own place in the world. And he said, the people who should be punished for how these young people were behaving are the people who were supposed to be teaching them what to do that was right. And they went back in the ocean. That's my kind of dragon story, but that's the only one I've ever found.
All right. Were you ready for some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Does a comprehensive list or book exist about who all the elementals are? Trees, fae, dragons, etc. Thank you.
Okay, this is a good one. And I found this on an old used book thing, but you can find it. It's called The World Guide of Gnomes, Fairies, Elves, and Other Little People. And it's written in very strange print. This in the 1950s would have been called an old print book when I was growing up. And it goes into everything. It goes into changelings. It goes into all of it. But then at the back, it does have an index. Yay! Something you won't get with your Chat GPT unless you ask for it. An index. And so if somebody mentions something and like what is, it follows the names of how do we get the word fairy? And there's a lot of people who think it came through the Romance languages from fata, which means fate, but it actually comes from a Persian word that meant little. They're little beings. They weren't as little as Tinkerbell, but that little being, that's what they're talking about. And then Europe has its own way of saying things, but you can find the same critters. Oh, Dr. Gail, you told me you saw a brownie and you wondered. You said, I saw it. You thought you saw a leprechaun or an elf, but it was all dressed in brown. Brownie.
No, it told me it was. I didn't know what it was, but the next day it told me it was a brownie.
Right. It's a brownie. Helpful household spirits that assist with the chores with honor and gratitude.
I want them to have at it.
Go get it. I want you to send me some of those. And then an Aziza is an African, West African, and in Africa, there's all different areas of people, but forest spirits that teach human skills like hunting and magic. They're small, luminous beings that have woodland wisdom, and they have always acknowledged in their myths that they speak with them telepathically. They've never said the thing came up and said this to me. But I did draw off a whole lot of words last night, so I could, in case some of you wanted to know. Kachinas are the suits that are worn in Native American or indigenous cultures to provide the strength of that animal or the wisdom of that animal. And of course, a lot of Kachinas you see are eagles or big birds, and they can fly over and watch everything. As far as there really being a comprehensive book, I don't know. I don't own one. I looked for some online, but like I said, the greatest gift I found was T.W. Rowlandson, because he actually was using papers that had been filed at Oxford University with people from the 1600s before the Industrial Revolution struck, and how their impression of working with the natural world was so different than their children and families that had gone into the Industrial Revolution. We're going through that kind of a mindset change again, guys. So that's what they keep telling me.
Okay, you ready for the next question?
Yep.
Okay. Next, Jean, do I work more with one type of elementals? More, I know I work mostly with the dragons, but are there others? And do they want me to own my apartment complex so I can rebuild better for all?
Well, I just applaud doing that anyway. This was sent to me last night when I posted my show. You just heard us rattle off the 4 divisions kind of they're in, and there's some of them that go back and forth even between those. Some of them come individually. I've never been with more than even when I've gone to meet with the elementals in their kingdom. The only dragon there was Cecil, and I only saw 2 unicorns there. I mean, there are some things I don't think there's tons and tons and tons of them. But, of course, my first question whenever I get involved with anything like this is, why me? And they said because I had worked with them in some of my past shamanic lives, and especially in Europe. And I know I have. I know that I've walked through places where I know that energy is there. And it doesn't scare me. It leaves me in awe. It occasionally, when you're not expecting to see it, it's just as if you weren't. People don't scare me, but if someone jumps out of a closet, yeah, that's not a good thing. So we've laid some groundwork with that. But when I was in the hospital and I was cut off, and I got very into much pity. Poor Nancy. She's sick. She can't breathe. I was so worried I wouldn't see any of my friends again. And my whole room lit up with fairy lights. And I said, okay, guys, you are fairy lights. And then they twinkle, twinkle, twinkle a lot, because I thought, I could be having a stroke, but it was not a stroke. It was my little friends coming to tell me and they were right. That night they told me I got to go home the next day. So.
Well, I'm curious about the second part of her question. And do they want me to own my apartment complex so I can rebuild better for all?
If they wouldn't, you wouldn't be getting those messages. Nobody's telling me to buy where I live. I live in a condo with my kids, but I know he's saying buy this complex but if you have the opportunity, there's so many opportunities that we never thought we were going to have that are going to start arising now. That has so much to do with, and you start off working with dragons. Dragons are tough.
Yeah.
Dragons.
Well, I remember the message I got from the owls, and maybe this might be appropriate, that they said, save them an apartment. And they kept saying it over and over again. It took me a while to figure out what they were talking about, because they kept showing me people building houses, and they don't want people to clear off the whole lot and put a house on just as big as the lot. They want you to save a set of trees, which they call it an apartment, save them an apartment. So keep that in mind when you're rebuilding, to save the wildlife, the owls, the birds, all the critters, save them an apartment, save them a space.
Yeah, one of my least favorite retailers, Walmart, took this gorgeous area that was all in the trees, and it was leading into the water that goes into White Rock Lake. And they said they were going to replace all the trees. There's no way. And every store except Chick-fil-A and Walmart that's gone in there has never made it. They have problems all the time. And it's because they mess with Mother Nature. Don't fool Mother Nature. GP had a question at the very beginning, Dr. Gail. Did we answer it?
We haven't gotten through hardly any questions.
Okay.
So here's somebody saying, I think, is that thank you?
Yeah.
The work you do, Nancy Jean. Okay, so that's, we haven't gotten quite through the questions that you were brought in. Elementals are ones we can work with or that click with us.
She's asking if she should work with how to do the work. And you'll find some of them are going to be easier for you to relate to. And then that's kind of a shadow work thing you can do. Why do I relate to this mischievous little elf? Because mine tend to be mischievous little things that put things down and can't find them later. So they were a dark side lesson for me. But yeah, some will click with you easier, and some you'll run into. That's why I have kind of that book about the world ones around, because some will show up and I'm not sure what they are, but they're like Aleutians are elementals that are in Mexico. They work like all elementals work, but they do very different things because they fit in the culture that has accepted them and created them into.
Okay, here's the next one. I think you're putting up the book.
Invisible Helpers by Charles Ledbetter. Thank you. I have to go find that one.
Oh, that's the one you put in.
Yeah, she sent me that book as a suggestion. Okay, now we're out of my stuff, Dr. Gail. We're into yours.
We're into whoever's coming now. Okay, let's see. Hi, Dr. G and N. And all, do I have a soul contract with any elementals? If yes or no, what message do they have for me, us here today? That's a good way to put all that. So,
Okay, that's a whole lot of questions.
yeah.
I think people can write it into their soul contracts to work with them, to be open to them. But to me, it's just to be open to energy. So when you're opening yourself up to energy, now if you in specific want to go after the elementals, read up on them and see how they relate into your life. But that's a you thing. And if you are telling you that much, then you probably do have a contract with them. And do you have a soul contract with them? Yes, you do. And you have a soul contract. There's some part of her bloodline that's Native American. She's got some connections to the Pudwudgies and some of the American, the indigenous elementals are hysterical. And Pudwudgies are particular. And maybe I'm just hearing that because I want to. But you do have a contact, and they are in the land around you. You've tried to work with gardening with them, and you can do that. Just go out and talk with them every day. All they really like is acknowledgement. In Europe, kind of universally, they like you to leave a disc of milk out or a dish of milk out at night. And in the olden days, putting out half a cup of milk, that's a lot to put out. And I used to, before I met the elementals, I used to always think it was someone's cat who came and got it, but I don't know.
I always took them chocolate kisses.
That'll do. They love sweets.
That was mainly for the fairies, though. Okay,
Yeah.
here's Teresa. She's saying, greetings, Galactic Tribe, Gail and Nancy Jean. Please remember to like and subscribe to all channels. Thanks. And
That's true.
yes, so go ahead and subscribe to Nancy Jean's channel, subscribe here, Dr. Gail-Skywalking with Moon, and also go over and subscribe to the new channel I have. It's with Terry Rayner, and that is Galactic Gaia V4S. You need to put the V4S in, and that is a healing channel, and that's new. So go ahead and YouTube has something new where you have to be subscribe to the channel for 24 hours before you can comment on a channel. So you don't want to miss out on any of the lives that we do, and you want to ask a question and you haven't subscribed to the last minute because you won't be able to do anything unless you've been subscribed for 24 hours.
Yeah. And subscriptions don't cost you money, and they really do help the channels. They really do help the channels.
Right. All right, here's the next one. Yet another Linda. Does the gnome in my yard have a message for me? I work with the gnomes a lot.
What, Dr. Gail?
No, because it's a funny message. Go ahead.
Okay. It hangs out on the perimeter. It's keeping your yard safe. There's something that is near you, some entity, being, road, something that makes you physically unsafe. And he's there as a guardian, and gnomes are great guardians. If you've ever watched The Wizard of Oz, the monkeys look like kind of the way gnomes look with their little armor on. He's there. He or she, I should not say, because I'm getting very gnomish energy, but they're very strong, and they're there to protect you, and that makes you feel very, very safe.
Okay.
What you get?
Well, Mom, was just funny. The words I got was "get off your butt," and so I couldn't hardly get past when they said that because it was so funny, because they're showing me you sitting down on a bench in a garden, and they're saying "get off your butt." And I think I'm not real sure how to interpret that, but to get off your butt and move is what I'm getting, to just get off your butt and move around. And I don't know why I'm so sorry, yet another Linda, to have that message, because we probably all need that message.
No, yeah, we all need that message. And gnomes are very physical. They are very tied to the physical earth. So maybe there's parts of your garden that the gnome would like to see look prettier. And you sit on the bench and think,
oh, it's not that they want her just to physically move around.
Oh, they want her to move. And that if she moves around, may as well do it in the yard.
Yeah, what is she saying here now? Interesting, because when I asked the crows why they left, they said they had someone else to protect. Getting off my butt makes perfect sense. Okay, well, good. I'm glad you weren't offended by that, because
Well, she had a murder of crows watching her. Good. So it's what a group of crows is called, a murder.
uh, you know, when I see the crows in the morning, they're always up in the trees, and I call them the coffee crows, because I feel like there's a bunch of women drinking coffee and talking.
Oh, I know.
They're so noisy. I love seeing them, and I miss whenever I don't see them. I miss and go, where are my coffee crows?
I don't have that many where I live because I'm near an airport, and they really don't like the noise. That really does disturb them. But when I used to have an area of Dallas I campaigned in a lot called East Dallas. And right before rain, when you could say, is it really going to rain? Because it was a little bit cloudy, and Texas rain can kind of grow in suddenly. You'd see all the power lines to the point you thought they were going to break. They had blackbirds on them, just sitting there waiting for the storm.
Oh no.
What?
She's saying they left after one of them was killed by something. Oh,
Well, that's too bad.
oh, I love your dog.
Yeah. Maybe the gnome and the dog need to make friends.
No, I doubt that was the dog that killed him. It's probably something else.
No, I don't think the dog killed the crow. It may just have died of poison someone put out. We had, in my complex, people saw a lot of coyotes coming out of the creeks. Well, you build into their territory, they're going to come out. So they're warning anybody who is letting animals out on their own at night, which you're also not supposed to do, that they were finding them destroyed. And so someone got it in their sweet little head to put poison in the trees. And I walked out one day and found about 6 squirrels dead.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yet another Linda saying her dog is dead. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Okay, let's see the next question. Say Kelly. Oh, are the fairies and elves? I said, yeah, I already answered her. Already
Yes.
in the chat. And then I asked you about the different elementals. We took care of her. Okay, Leah, may I ask, do they dwarfs, elves, fae, etc., that wear clothes or hats?
Dr. Gail, you can answer that better. You've heard them riding around in your bedroom at night.
Yes, they do wear clothes, and some of them do wear hats. It's all different. Each one's different. The ones that are riding in my bedroom at night are wearing clothes, and they are riding on fruits and vegetables, which they are part of the sifts, is what I think they are. And but the gnomes are always wearing hats, and also that brownie that I saw the other night was wearing a hat. They all were wearing clothes, but the one that the brownie, which I thought was interesting, which it kept going, and I know elementals can be shapeshifters. I do know that, and it kept switching to look like Yoda on Star Wars, a younger Yoda on Star Wars, and then looking like a brownie or elf or whatever. But anyway, it was going switching back and forth, and it did tell me the next day that it was actually a brownie. So as I said, I was excited when I read up on them and go, oh, they're house helpers. They're going to come in and clean my house while I sleep. I definitely want that. I'm pulling this up. Revered Wolf VIP. Wow, what a name! And look at the thumbnail.
Yeah, I like it.
I didn't just hunt ghosts. I researched the paranormal for Paranormal Research Society of Penn State. Wow, that's impressive.
Yep.
Welcome.
And there's a lot of
First time I've seen you in the chat, so welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Come on over. I don't talk about ghosties much, but by the way, in our world, we call ghosts earthbound spirits.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow. Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get it. Kelly, I believe I connect with them in the garden. Oh yeah, Kelly, I'm sure you do. I mean, it's connected to you with everything. I'm sure you're connected with them in the garden or anywhere. Okay, and Celtic Seers, hit the like button. Helps algorithms. Thank you very much,
Mhm.
actress. Okay, and then she's going, Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow. Allow more time for travel and watch out of communication snafus, patience. Thank you. We're all going to be biting our tongues tomorrow, not saying what we want to say.
Yeah, it's all the re's: restore, rethink, redo, But part of what you can do during that time is, if you've been talking to the elementals, you can take it more slowly, because they're into the same energy from the space that we are, and they're slowing down too.
Okay. All right. Now let's see. Jules, Thunderbirds are very important to the tribes.
They are. The Kachina dances are incredible.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
powerful.
Let's see. And Joe saying, aloha, my mom, who had passed in 2009, collected dragons. She lived in Hawaii for 48 years. Now, whenever I go home to Hawaii, I always have a dragon show up in the clouds. I know my mom's closer. Oh, how sweet. That's so sweet.
A lot better than the way dragons could be connecting to her with the volcano from the ground, which they also have in Hawaii.
Yes. Okay.
Lovely.
Sarah, are you the one that was asking about the rebuilding the apartments, the courtyard garden? No, just you don't have any money. Maybe you can find a backer. We can't. I don't know, Nancy Jean. Do you help with that? With how she can find the money for that? There's all different creative ways.
To the elementals that you think are telling you and say, this is a lovely idea, but I live in the world of pentacles. Where's the pentacles coming from?
Yeah, but there are very creative ways, especially if somebody is selling those apartments. Sometimes they'll do owner financing, and they'll do 100% owner financing, or just a little bit down. There's some very creative things on buildings and apartments, much more so than houses. Like single houses, a little bit harder, but whenever it comes to buildings or apartments, there's a lot more creative financing with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll have to say, because I have done a lot of real estate in the past.
You have experience more. I had experience with fixing them up. I never bought anything.
Well, I did that too. So, okay, Gary, please, whom is around me and message thank you? Who is around you? Do you want to read on that?
Yeah. I see it's very white, it's very light, and you keep catching it out of the side of your eye. You could ask for it to make itself more apparent to you. It's not a bad entity, and they're just trying to help you see beyond the darkness you wrap yourself in.
Okay. Well, right now I'm going to start some more questions. Why don't you go into what you have, your classes and all that kind of stuff right now while I'm looking at the chat.
Okay. Right now I have I'm going to start another tarot class. We got another recruit over the weekend and people say, well, how come you need a certain number? You need a certain number because there has to be 6 to 8 people there. The best number is 10. And if you start with the class of 10, things are going to happen. People are going to start watching it on Zoom and stuff. But you need to have people to bounce your ideas off of. And the way the class works is I teach numerology in the first week. I teach it with Jeffrey from Ripe Color. We teach numerology the first week. That means that you get an understanding of the deck from 1 to 10 in the minor arcana. And we go through what the minor arcana mean, the cups, the wands, the swords, and the pentacles, what they all mean. Then the next week, we teach you some readings you can use just using those cards. And we teach you the court cards, the page, knight, queen, king, traditionally in most cases. And then we do a whole 2-hour lesson on the Fool's Journey, which is starting with the Fool at 0 and coming out with the world at 21. And we follow all of the aspirations that a human has, or that being has, going through that cycle. And I think the major arcana are the thing that's sometimes hardest for people to understand. by then we've taught you readings, we've taught you layouts every week, and you can start to read some. And we send you backup sheets, PDFs, or things you can just put on your screen so you can follow what we're talking about. We use a Rider-Waite deck to train you because it's kind of our deck of origin, and it's got every card you can see in it. And I read reverses. If a card turns upside down when I read it, I have a way of reading reverses. Jeffrey doesn't. So you're kind of taught by people that do it both ways. And our classes kind of come out 50-50, what people choose to do about how they read. That's a class I'd read. Nancy, that's the website, is crystaldirections.com. And the other thing I work with is I work a lot with crystals. And matter of fact, this poor little puppy needs to go in the mail. She needed to go in the mail 2 days ago, but I've been fighting a cold and stuff, so I hadn't quite gotten around to everything. But this is a crystal grid. And each one of the stones on this has a reason why it's there. It's why it's placed there. And this becomes part of her altar, or wherever she wants to put up in the wall, look at it. But you connect all the stones together, and it creates an energy web that helps you maintain and strengthen your energy. I build those. You get those through my website. And actually, last night, Dr. Gail, I didn't talk to you about this yet. Maybe I'll talk about it now. I'm thinking about doing a 12-week course on elementals.
Oh, okay.
It kind of, because you go more in depth. When I tried to break it out last night and put it into cute little pockets of this and that so you can get enough in an hour, it's really hard. So, and the course in elementals will bring in my crystal work. It'll bring in where the elementals have been. They're all over the tarot too, and how to work with them and how to tie into what part of your past life you can bring up through understanding. Because certain elementals will sing to you. They'll be there for you. They'll be saying, "Oh yeah, you remember me way back here, woohoo." And what everybody's was raised. Well, I was listening to one last night, and it was about fairies, and it was 12 Irish folk tales that went into elementals and how they worked. And it really is, in England, only 12% of the land is still sort of native forest, and only 6% of Ireland is. And when mankind got there about 5,000 years ago and got there for real, the place was a forest. It was a very thick forest. And we did that to it. So the creatures and the elementals and the energy that tends to be with plants tends to get more and more and more clustered. And it was interesting to hear, they always talk about, there's a musical called Into the Woods. And the whole premise of the musical is it's all based on fairy tales, but it's when you go into the woods, that's when you test yourself. That's when you lose your superficial self and you have to deal with what's real. And we don't go into the woods nearly enough in our culture. So that's kind of where I am. I have a class on Tuesdays. I used to teach stuff every Tuesday. I do readings every Tuesday. And I hang out with Dr. Gail occasionally. And I hang out on Sunday mornings. This is the only time I do it. Sunday mornings, I talk politics. And it's not Sunday, so don't put any questions in. They do. They always do, though.
What? They always do what?
Put in political questions.
Oh, yeah. I get those occasionally, too. And I don't even do politics, but I'll occasionally get somebody put something in there. But I found this question interesting. I believe an elemental zapped the top of my foot. I'm spitting over myself over the summer. I saw it in my mind's eye. It was fuzzy. What was it?
Oh, it was it was some form of Elvis or elf energy, and they come and go really quickly. They're very electric. They're very, very much in the air. And it was just testing you out to see if you'd acknowledge it. And if you acknowledge it, it'll come back. It'll be back.
Okay. All right, let's see. Let's see. Joe has a question. Aloha, living in Texas in an apartment. Do I have a special elemental near me? If so, is there a message for me?
It would be such a cliche to say if you live in Texas long enough, you'll have a fire element next to you because you lived in Texas long enough. We have a lot of them, but we have a mixture in Texas. We have sort of our more traditional European looking elves and things, but we also have a lot of the energy, the elfin energy. It forms itself like it does south of the border. And it's pretty territorial, but it's not going to hurt you. Its message for you is to keep your own lines for yourself, to take a hold the line for yourself. And that's why you sense it's there. It's teaching you how to be protective.
Okay.
What'd you get?
I didn't. I'm sitting there starring these questions right now.
Okay, star questions.
So, okay. Are there any elementals in my yard? If so, what else can I give to help them? Ice melts by love. Oh, love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is put out things that are pretty. They like pretty. They like pretty. They like order. They like plants, like flowers, because they like to see the bees and they like to see the birds come to those, be attracted to those things. And
I
that
can't
would help.
connect to anything that's around her, though.
Huh?
I said, I can't connect to anything that's around her.
No, she doesn't have much in her yard.
Yeah, I was going to say, there just doesn't seem to be anything there.
But if, it's even if it's you get a potted plant or a little something and say, here's a home for you, a place where they can go hide. I have some bushes out beside me and I had them put in a specific bush so they could hang out in the branches.
Okay.
And I live in a community property. I live in a condominium.
Yeah. Well, here's a question kind of off the subject. I start a new job tomorrow, which I am very excited about. Any messages concerning my new adventure? You're really good at those, Nancy Jean.
Okay. Well, it's great that you're excited about it, Mary. I think I always had the problem of, even if I knew I was the best qualified person for the job that they could have gotten, I always went through it, but everybody else around me knows what's going on, and I don't know what kind of job you're getting. I tended to work in business organizationally sort of things, except for when I was a chef's apprentice in the kitchen, and then everybody knew more than I did because they were used to cooking at that level. Just go in with an open heart and ask Ariel to come in with you. Archangel Ariel, if you work with archangels. Ariel's really good at new adventures, keeping your eyes open and keeping your spirit light. And if you have any reason to feel like you need to be cautious, ask Archangel Michael to be on your side. And the other thing you can do is when you take breaks, do 6 deep breaths. You don't have to do this in front of everybody. Go in the bathroom. Take 6 deep breaths, pull it in, count to 4, let it out slowly. Do that for 6 times, and you will have turned your mind from being reactive to being receptive and open, and they'll sense it, and that will make it easier for you to communicate.
All right, this is going to be our last question. Hello, ladies. We have a lot of activity in our hallway next to large windows. I heard metal drop and found a silver dollar on the ground. Are these fairies? Usually that's related to dragons, isn't it?
That could be related to dragons. Those would be pretty tiny dragons. I think you do have. Ask them to place in your mind's eye who they are. I'm
getting it was dragons.
Yep, I think you're right.
So, Kimberly, you have a dragon. You have, okay, looks like to me there are 3 dragons, 1 big one and 2 little ones.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sweet and cute. That's what surrounds you. Anything to add to that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, that feels good to me.
Yeah.
Feels like a good answer. So,
Okay. Anything else you need to talk about your class, how people can sign up for the class?
go to
When?
my website, crystaldirections.com. Go up into the um, where it says shop, and it'll take you through, and there's a whole description there. If you want to go, you can look in my resources file, and I have dowsing charts there. I have a book about how to do dowsing, which is a great way to get in touch with elementals that might be in your space. The rods or the pendulum will point them out. Those are real good things
Okay.
to do. And I think, and I'm on Substack also, but I usually put over there as my psychic profiles. And Revered Wolf VIP, if you are a psychic, if you could get in touch with me, I'd love to have a ghost hunter come on my psychic profiles.
Okay.
And I have no way of backtracking your view through that. So,
okay. Just go get in touch with her at Nancy Jean's website, crystaldirections.com, and hook you up there, do an interview with you. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. When's your next show? Nancy Jean, is it Sunday?
Tomorrow I'm taping a psychic profiles. I'm putting two together this afternoon. I did one with Irish Granny and one with Dozen Cats, and I'm going to be putting those up. But I put up 3 more that I showed on YouTube, and now I'm putting them over on Substack. Okay. And then I've got a show on Sunday with Scott at and if you subscribe to my channel, you will always know when I am on, because I'm very good about letting people know when I'm on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Nancy Jean, for sharing all your information.
And thank you for inviting me.
And thanks for moderators for making this a safe place. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.